Welcome, everyone, once again to another episode of your favorite podcast, the NextGen Agro Talks Podcast. And as usual, I am Oladapo Folarin, and with me is my co-host.
Yeah, Folarin, Okelola, it's a pleasure to have you guys again, and I'm sure you are going to have a very interesting session with our guest, who we are going to unveil just in a minute.
Yeah. Today we have an interesting person with us. I ran into her, one of the conferences I had at the University of Reading, and she's someone who is doing something laudable and, very interesting. I would allow her to introduce herself.
Yeah, hi everyone. And just first of all, to say thank you for inviting me. And I think this is where we say connections are important. So it was lovely to see you at Reading. And then, of course, know that you do this podcast so that we can, encourage others and draw others like us into the industry, the wonderful industry of agriculture. So my name is Agnes Maina. Originally, or not originally, I'm from Kenya, but of course I work within the UK, within the agriculture space, which I love, absolutely love. 24 hours, 365 is all agri, nothing else.
So, my question, the first one would be, can you tell us about what first sparked your interest, in agriculture back in Kenya before UK?
Yeah. So there's a little bit of back history. So when I was 2 years old, apparently I would go to my grandparents carrying something to plant. Uh, Beet flowers I had plucked from, the parents' garden or had picked somewhere along the way or in nursery maybe. So those are the stories I hear. And then later on, when I got a bit older, um, I would hang out with my granddad, and he was a farmer, a pig farmer. He also grew bananas, large scale bananas, had cattle, and that was a huge influence. So, as you know, the structure of Kenya, you have your parents who work, who have proper white collar jobs, and then farming is an addition, but still carried as a business. It is structured in a way; it's still a business. So I grew around that environment. So I would run around being granddad's pickup. The best thing is getting an odd Fanta and a sweet, but I didn't know it could actually be something that I was actually grasping. So I think that's when everything started. So school, I took, as you know, Kenya agriculture is part of the school system. So took agriculture, went on to secondary instead of choosing as another science. I still chose agriculture. When I went into the university, uh, I still chose. Well, I was going to the university as it is in 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 as you know in Kenya. There's only like four things you can do as a child. You're either a doctor, a lawyer, uh, even a vet is not probably one of them. And then you know, agriculture is, back there. So when I went to university, I actually went to do banking. Then when it got to second year, I told my professor, you know what, I'm not understanding. This is not me. And so I did. Instead, there was an option to do entrepreneurship, and then you could develop into whatever you wanted to be. So I developed myself into
Mm,
agriculture entrepreneurship. So any presentation I
mm,
did was agriculture.
Mm.
Any
mm.
any writing I did was food related. Any business idea was food. So I think all that has shaped me to who I am today.
Wow, that's interesting. You were wired for from the cradle up to the university. It's like agriculture was following you. And quite interesting, I see your bachelor's degree is agripreneurship, a fascinating field. What exactly does it entails, and how did this prepare you for your career? You.
Yeah. Yeah. So agriculture, I think, I think first it was entrepreneurship, just the course. learning how to run small, medium businesses. It had, of course, the accountancy, business planning, marketing, all the courses that kind of bring entrepreneurship together. But then for me, I felt the focus was still on agriculture, because how then do I move the small family farm into a business? How do I? So those things kept running in my mind, and I would think about them a lot. So then that's what led to that agriculture, and I feel like agriculture is a business. It's a good business because we're in the business of feeding people and making people happy through food.
Yeah.
We are in the business of looking after the environment as stewards of the environment. So I don't see it as just a job. I think there's a lot that we probably don't see because we are stewards of the land, which means a lot, not just you having the land. It means looking after it, making sure it's better than you found it. And yeah, so that's I think that's what agri entrepreneurship means for me.
Oh, that's great. I remember when we discussed, you mentioned you at some point worked in women banking. So I'm wondering, how did this experience connect to your passion for agriculture? And what did you learn? Did you learn anything from working with women, during your banking days?
Yeah, so when I first, among other jobs, I think one of the first proper career was agriculture. Was banking. It was a women's banking, and when I got a job with them, I happened to secure it in the research and development section of the bank. So
Oh,
this
great.
is not, the forefront of the bank, or this is where it was a team of people where we would sit and just think about ideas that would fit in
Mm,
within finance and agriculture, or whichever they were. It was just a research and development. So I was a research and development officer, which is quite strange
mm.
if I mean in a bank.
Yeah, when
But
you
then,
think of banking, yeah.
yeah, at the time the bank was of course not licensed CBK properly. So it was, I think the bank was the Kenya Women Bank at the time, Kenya Women Trust. That was what it was. So made up of women, and most of the women were in the rural areas. And having things were like things they would do was like table banking, small entrepreneurial ideas, but bring them into a banking kind of model where they would have savings and that financial exchange. So yeah, I got myself into that research and development, and before you know it, one of my boss at the time, Mr. Geshimo, every time he said, let's think about a product, mine would always go to agriculture. So I think for me, it's always, I feel like I'm on default setting, you know, anything you give me, I'll have to include agriculture for some weird reason.
Mm.
I don't know. So then that's how I started developing. We would sit and develop projects within that. So things like dairy cow funding for the women, you know, weather indexing, seed potato, like small products that would suit the women, and it would be on a value chain model. Yeah.
Yeah. You just mentioned weather index, and I remember we also had a discussion about it, when we met as well. Can you please explain to us in simple terms, how is this important to Kenyan farmers?
So weather indexing insurance, when it came, was that point where I think looking at farmers in the perspective of input and output. So you can see, like in we have, we can get very, climate change when we have very dry seasons. Sometimes we have very wet weather. So weather indexing is insuring the farmer for their crop against, what they cannot do, what you can't be able to control as the farmer. So means if you get an input insurance. So, for example, maize. If you get maize, that was not the crop, but if you got maize, then you get you don't have you get this. So the funding was you get the right maize, this right seed, because it all starts with seed, and then
It's yeah.
the education, and then if anything happens and you have like zero germination or a calamity which is beyond you, then you would have the insurance assess the risk, and the farmer would be refunded for that, either to start again or that shielding. The other one would be output. So you've had the season where things are going well. We all know weather has its own. That's the one thing we can't control. So the season's been right. You've been searching the market. It looks way. You've even checked one or two maize, and you're thinking, this is the killer here. This is where I make my margins. And then maybe hail, theft, or whichever parameters were put in place at the time. Then the farmer would get insured for that output. So if you didn't get that output, which is expected, which is calculated, like if you get proper seed and you've planted an acre and you've done everything that is needed, either using fertilizer, manure, whatever, you are expected to get 8 bags. So if you got 4 bags and there's a valid reason, then you have insurance. There's an insurance. So it was just like so what it was is it's like a basket for small scale farmers, because when you lose, you lose.
Okay.
So it was something just for the small scale farmers, something they can cushion themselves, especially in rural areas where agriculture is just not, farming is not, as a business, as from where because I live near the city. For us, farming is a plus. But when you go farther out, farming is the thing. So for
Is
them,
the
that
big
was
deal,
very
yeah.
important. Yeah.
Mm.
Or I think we say it's the income earner for the families, where, the
Mm.
even for me, sometimes if we needed something, they would sell the animals, and people joke about it, but it makes a lot of sense where it's time for
Yeah.
school fees. You've got 4 children, this livestock or whatever it was actually an insurance in itself that families can be
Mm.
able to push on. So generally, that's weather indexing, really.
Oh, that's quite educative. And for me, now let's talk about your transition. Moving from Kenya to the UK must have been a significant change for you. So, what motivated you to pursue a master's in agriculture and development when you arrived the UK?
Yeah. So, like anybody else who comes to the UK, um, it's quite a different environment, and it can be a bit not stressful, but a bit shocking to the system. In terms of, for me, was instead of going to the local butcher to get my meat,
Yeah,
or going to the abattoir as usual to get my meat, I had to go into Sainsbury's to get meat wrapped in a plastic bag.
Tesco.
That, for me, it was almost like culture shock, and carrots. And when I, from home, I think one of the things I appreciate about many, not just African countries, tropical countries, is that there's, like markets.
yeah,
Going to a market is actually a thing, and where you buy in bulk. So I think that when I came, that confused me a little bit, and I started thinking, and then I couldn't fit anywhere. I tried the care industry. I did try, um, and I was like, it's not working. I need to be. I need to be
yeah,
where agriculture. So I started looking for schools, universities, and I had various options. And then I remembered significantly. Somebody was in Reading years and years, I think in the 80s, and most of them were extension workers in Kenya. And I was like, right, what more do I need? They're the ones who used to get the prime jobs in Kenya because they studied in Reading. I can't be wrong. Boom! I decided to do agriculture and development in Reading. Uh, uh, yeah, and I think it's just the zeal and desire to be within the industry. But then also remember, I'm coming from a tropical country where I have agriculture knowledge from Kenya. It's different how we do things. We are not as mechanized.
Yeah.
We have agroforestry, yes. We do, no till. We are also heavy on labor. So I didn't know where else to start because I need to understand what system I'm going into. Other than reading agriculture books and watching, videos on maize or wheat harvesting, I I had no clue about this environment. So I thought if I went to school, this I think I would start to understand what agriculture means here, and also get myself in a space where I'll be able to link with others instead of, you can't just walk onto a farm, and meet
Yeah.
somebody, a farmer, and ask them, so which are the better place? So I thought, right, agriculture and development, here I am, let's go.
That's quite interesting. And that's the crux or the center of this podcast, because we have a lot of people who are coming into UK but know nothing about agriculture in UK. And that's why, listening to people like you will help, of course, them to come to terms of, what agriculture is. And like you said, you tried, you couldn't fit into all those places, but you are fitting into agriculture. But move away from that, let's look at your studies. Studying in the UK, how is it different from studying in, and your work experience in Kenya? You've talked about agriculture, but now your studies. Were there any differences?
So I think yes, the science bit was a bit confusing when, like, one of my, I think the loveliest class for me was when we did a wheat experiment. Now, here is Agnes, who's used to maize and other tropical crops. Now I have to start understanding maize and do like an experimental research that I don't understand. And I feel universities here, when it comes to research, there's a lot on you to do. You have to do the work. That I realized very quickly. But it's also another great opportunity to think outside the box, because remember, you're coming with a level of experience, just a little bit
Yeah.
within agriculture. Then what is the space for me within these systems here, and what can I marry with, or what can I apply? Of course, not everything is applicable, especially Africa, most of the time smallholder, temperatures, you know um, we storing seed. Well, here it's massive. It's huge lands. It's technical. So, but I feel that I still feel strongly there's something we can borrow from each other. And similarly, the same way, today I decide to when I go home, I do share my knowledge from here, because I feel there's something they can also you can take from here and also take back home. It's a system, so it needs borrowing, subtracting, and a mix of the two can work. So, yeah, I think for studies, that's what I can say. There's a lot of and referencing. In
Yeah.
Kenya we say X told me, X said, Y said, and because I was coming from, yes, I knew referencing, but remember, I'm coming from where I'm just used to thinking when I'm doing entrepreneurship and giving my ideas, maybe looking at Warren Buffett's books and just writing something, things. There was not much of the books per se for that course. But here, because it's a science, that referencing, that you have to go out and get that material for yourself. So there's within, I think, the education here, especially at the master's level, because I had already done an undergraduate. So, and I knew if I went back I know sometimes you have to step back to then step forward. But I thought, let me try and step forward and see what happens. So there was a lot of, um, upwards learning very quickly. But the goodness about Reading is that the support, it was there. I mean, you would just ask and you just get a lot of information. It would
Yeah.
actually be very difficult for you in the end to try and separate which one you want to use, which one you don't want to use. But that's what I'd say, is that even if you're coming here to study agriculture, there's value. And then the other thing I can say is connect yourself. If you're in agriculture, look for those spaces. If you're feeling horticulture is your thing, where is the space?
Yeah.
Where lecturers are there, professors are there. Try and find out, is there a horticulture society? If you're wheat and a scientist who loves that, look for spaces where do they send students to the big wheat, researchers. You
Yeah.
know, I think, yeah, just try and marry. It's difficult, it's different, but I feel like there's a bridge and you can pick from either. I hope that answers your
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, Agnes.
Mm,
I'm also aware of your you've got, I know you've got some allotment, and I'm aware of some of the work you do. You've shared with me, and I know you also grow some African West African vegetables on your allotment on your farm,
yeah.
which sounded very amazing to me. I know you love agriculture, but then what I'm curious to know, what inspired you to start growing this particular type of vegetables on your allotment?
What inspired me? To be honest, I was homesick. I was absolutely homesick. And you can see my background. I've always been near a farm. I've always been doing stuff. I've always had my hands in soil. As much as
Yeah.
the education was there, that was the book stuff. I was missing that interaction, that going into the field and getting your spinach to eat in the evening, or you have guests who've come home and my mom will say, oh, you go and get some vegetables to go, um i I miss those days where I thought it was punishment
Mm.
going to pick coffee, or my mom used to say, um, she had a little plot and she wanted dug by my mom, by me and my brother, and she said, I'm going to give you each, 50 shillings. And this was, we were probably 10 or so. And there used to be a mall where we could play video games, and we dug that place like never before, record time, picking every weed meticulously, and we went back and said, can you please, 50 shillings, because we knew this is going to be a wonderful weekend. And she said, where do you think you get your food from? Yeah. So I was missing those connections, as small as they were. Land meant more than just the food. It meant joy. It
Mm,
meant mental peace.
mm,
It just meant, and just being outside, smelling the air, seeing all the wonderful and weird things apart from snakes. Um, yeah, so I was just missing that. So that's what got me into wanting an allotment.
no, that's great. And
Yeah.
also, can you tell us about some of the vegetables you're growing and what makes them unique?
So homesick first. So where can I get my vegetables? And what vegetables can I grow? Half here it's cold, and then sunshine for a little window. And I started asking myself, and writing stuff. First of all, it took 4 years to get an allotment. I was on the waiting list for 4 years.
Wow, wow.
So, uh, for those 4 years, I spent volunteering on farms, looking for proper experiences, studying a horticulture course, level 1 and 2. I tried everything to just
Mm,
volunteering on people's gardens just to get that experience.
mm,
Yeah, so 4 years. And then when I got it, I thought, I want to grow vegetables that are not common here. I would want to see okra in the supermarket. Things that I was used to seeing, but I can't see anymore. And that, as much as people find it or maybe some people don't understand, it can give you an emptiness. And then if I had to go and buy vegetables, I would have to go to London, and they cost an arm and a leg. And I'm still young, living in I have a little budget. So I'm not probably able to buy the vegetables. So it was once in a blue moon, I could get
Yeah.
amaranthus, or what they call here, what do they call it? Callaloo. I would most of the time, because I'm missing home, buy callaloo in the can and try and, sprinkle it with all the love and anything in my cupboard, to not that it tastes bad, just to make it, to just feel that. So that's what inspired me, really, to try and grow, the weird and the wonderful, I call them. Yeah.
That's nice. Thank you very much. And I
Mm.
also like to know, have you discovered any nutritional any difference in nutritional value of growing these vegetables here in the UK versus growing them back home? Do you think have you seen any surprises?
I have. I think the taste a little bit, because the soil is
Mm,
different, not in terms, because I'll be very honest, I haven't tested the nutrition, but at home when you're cutting greens, you get green color on your fingers.
yeah.
So that's the first thing I noticed after stopping to buy vegetables. It's the first thing I noticed, and I was like, oh, this is good. Uh, I think the taste is different, just a little bit. Mm, what else? I don't think there's anything that
Mm,
different, but it's. I think it's the same. But what's interesting is the times you're growing it.
Mm.
And especially for me,
yeah.
who doesn't grow it in glass houses, in modern agriculture, modern tech, and using,
Yeah.
that temperature environment. So I have to be innovative in my own way, to try and make sure, how do I get my soil warm at the right time? And then I don't also breed bacteria trying to, cover my soil so that it warms up before the season starts. So yeah, I think those are the only things I can think about, but nothing in terms of taste. Color is the same. How they look at home and how they look here is the same. It actually gives you joy when it starts growing. You have like that. You can't
Mm,
breathe, especially after. I think this is funny. When I planted the first time, I got my allotment. I was so excited. It was February, and you can imagine the temperatures.
it's
So I
cold.
got the proper hole, the proper one we use in Africa. That's what I
Yeah.
used to, and everybody was looking at me. They're used to rotavators, and they're like, what are they doing? And I planted too early, and I lost everything, because I
Wow.
used to go there every day to check, has it germinated? 14 days, nothing. 20 days, nothing.
Wow.
So it's been a learning journey. So things, plants. So I now know even crops that just I wouldn't even bother, because they,
Mm,
they just
mm.
don't germinate in this temperature. And because we
Yes.
have a very
Yeah.
short window of that lovely weather in the UK, it's quite difficult. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm, mm. I think you already answered some of my next questions in terms of challenges, which you probably faced, like, weather is obviously one of them. Is there any other challenges that that you face, probably that you've not mentioned? And then I also like to know, or we also like to know, the rewards of this project that you've embarked on.
Mm. So the one thing I can say in terms of uh, biggest challenges for the projects is the temperature, the soil. Number two, manure. getting proper FYM. Whereas in Kenya, you go
Very
over the
easy.
fence and you shout and you say, "Do you have chicken manure?" And those are the things I found a bit challenging, trying to get the resource. So what did you see? That's why I say entrepreneurship it comes in handy. So I have a local farmer where I buy goat, my
Oh.
goat meat. So when I went there, I saw goat, and then of course they showed us around. I looked at it, and they were sweeping, and then I thought, Mark, I was excited about the goat poo, not the goat meat, the poo, because I knew what was coming, and I call that I call that gold. It should
Yeah.
be a resource that is highly valued. But and then so one time I said, "Oh, I was wondering if I could get a few bags of goat manure." It was a few, tucked up in the car and ferried to my allotment. So you can imagine the smell in the car for a bit. It was very earthy and great. So there's that
Yeah.
manure sourcing. The other thing is seed sourcing, because I had to get help from a few organizations, and for you to bring seed, there is a protocol to bring seed in the UK. So you have to learn that. The other thing is what's another challenge? I think it's that getting your soil at the right temperature and maximizing
Mm.
growth during that specific window, and especially when you're not within that greenhouse environment. You have to
Mm.
think outside the box. Definitely, there's no two ways. The other is, of course, doing the right things, applying at the right time. I also don't use herbicides or pesticides. I grow organic. The seed sometimes is not, especially for African vegetables, it's very hard to get organic seed unless you start seed saving.
Mm.
I think we've lost a bit of that clean seed, where I used to see my grandmother used to have a maize cob, by the fire in the granary, and I never understood why.
Yeah.
And she would pick her
Preserving it.
base.
Yeah.
She was actually preserving seed. And then next
Yeah.
season she would plant. So I think a lot of that was also lost within most of what we call indigenous, forgotten vegetables in Africa. We have a bit of that, or even elsewhere in the world. But I'm still out there looking for sources. Sometimes you get, and also the risk sometimes of seed is that it can bring in disease if it's not proper. So you can bring a soil disease from somewhere else. So with my agriculture background, I'm also aware that can be a problem. So seed is also a challenge, getting the right temperature, and also tools we are used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tools are very different here. So welcome. So that was a challenge. And yeah, I think basically, the other thing about the project is I had to invest heavily on netting rabbits. Number one, they're
Oh, okay.
everywhere, and I can decide to clear out everything. Slugs is the other local
Yeah.
tenant who doesn't pay rent but sits there and waits. The minute your vegetables look amazing, they go in there, and you can imagine the damage they do.
Yeah.
Of course, there's the local deer that is normally in the allotment, jumping over fences, looking for what to eat. They have a proper diet. Yeah, I have a hate and love relationship with them. The other problems is butterflies, which then again you get
Oh,
the
the
what do you call
lava,
it?
right?
The black
The
worm.
the lava. Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
So I had that this year on some of my kale, and we had to pick it up one by one because, of course, I don't
Oh,
spray anything. So
yeah.
it's waiting for the right time to pick it. Yeah, or wash it, spray it with a hose, but then again, you damage the plant. So those are the challenges, but the rewards is just having something that tastes like home and knowing that it's possible, that there's nothing impossible. If you put your head to it, there's nothing impossible. I've been
Yeah.
able to save food for, so when I harvest, what I do is I've learned ways to preserve. I've bought a dryer where I dry some of the food just to see how it behaves.
That's nice.
I also
Yeah.
cut and freeze in the freezer just to see what happens. And so I have food now. I've cut, food budget has been cut, and the only time we get to buy food is probably that window between end of February and beginning of April. So it's only a
Mm.
small window because I plant everything from onions to garlic to spring onions to anything. And what is beautiful is that I can marry what grows here and what we grow in Africa, or whichever crop, be it Asia. I have Mexican chilies I've grown and they've done amazing. So I get
Oh,
any
wow.
crop from anywhere as long as it will grow. I'm happy to try it. Yeah, so those are the rewards really.
Well, you're really inspiring me at this point.
This is quite inspiring. I'm sure a lot of people will be willing to learn from you. My next question, even myself, I feel like I can answer it for you because it's like
Mm.
looking ahead, what do you hope to achieve, with the research you are doing on your allotment? Because it's a lot of research that you are doing. So what do you think you hope to achieve with all this work?
So one is to, maybe it can, one day it can be used as for data collection, just trying to understand, could it be useful for breeding? Could it be, you know, anything we can learn from there, or any notes I've taken. Some crops I've realized if you plant them together, they actually deter pests, some of them. And if you
Mm.
leave a small patch, they actually take all the pests and leave your vegetables alone. So I'm taking little notes like that, and I hope to share. I have been out there sharing, people who have the seed but don't even know how to start it, or to even encourage others that it's a possibility. It's hard work. I will say farming is not easy. It is hard work. It is dedication. It takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of connections, especially here, and just the willingness to learn from your failures. You know, that even if a crop fails, yeah, that's it. Just know this won't work. But if you get another way to do it, fine. There are things now I have kept. I know very well they cannot grow within just a normal environment. I have to have a greenhouse or a glass house. That's the only way it's going to work. Um, 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 so that's my aim. The other one, I know most people are aware, the ones who know me, is that I'm now fostering to go into large scale. Not fostering, like looking to go to large scale. Land here is not easy. I can tell anybody who's looking, we've been there, we've tried it, but try your luck. It's not easy way, and let not anybody cheat you that you can go and just get it. Not because of anything, but you know, farms here are the way farms are at home. You can purchase. You know what I mean? Here it's different.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
generational. It's owned by a state, so
Yeah.
it's quite a long, tedious process. It can break you, but it's also a learning process. Where and the other way you should also look at it is fine. And I'll pose a question here: is what if you can't get land here and you have an opportunity to farm back at home? Because not all of us will be able to do it
Mm.
here. Because if we
Yeah.
all do it here, then we choke. How are we going to share these customers? You know, so there has to be that midpoint. But what can we also take from here and start back home that can bring that like a Western experience and marry both.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think I'll leave it at that and ask people to think. I won't give the answers, but I think there's a wonderful opportunity there as well. I'm not saying we
Yeah.
change our systems the same way. We are not saying change the system. What we are asking, what we are saying is a diversity of crops within the
Yeah.
a farming system, and that way we are able to have nutritious food, and we can try and deal with climate change. Like the UK this year was unbelievably hot for a very long time and dry as well. And can we feed our research for more, uh, um, you know, in terms of even nutritious food, not just agriculture, the farming, but can our foods
Yeah.
fit into nutrition as well? We've got to think broadly now. Is okay, Agnes is growing okra. Can okra be something else? Can it be a paste to apply in my bread? Can it be, we've got to start asking those questions and starting in our kitchens, and don't fear experimenting. So I think for me, the next space is bigger. It is growing to supply the rest. I feel like it would be nice to eat a little bit of home. And I'm sure I have my first two customers on this podcast. So, yeah.
I can bet that.
Yeah.
And you just answered the question I was gonna ask you, like, when are you going commercial? When are you supplying Sainsbury's? When are you supplying, Asda and Tesco? But you've answered that already. You've got that plan.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
that's
haven't
great.
looked at the supermarkets yet, but
Yeah,
there's
it's a gradual process. I
opportunity.
know. Yeah,
Yeah, there's opportunity to serve
yeah,
maybe just maybe 50 people for start, or 100 people. I don't know. And it all
yeah,
depends on the land, the location. As you know, the UK is quite big. When you look at migrant communities, if that's the correct word to use at this point, is we are quite stretched out. So we tend to live in areas. So if I decided to go and get a farm in Scotland, and I'm not saying that's not the right thing, then I have to assess the risk. Who are my customers? So there's that
yeah,
also to work with. So, but soon,
yeah.
soon there will be a farm somewhere that people can come, feel at home, and pick their own vegetables, and just also share meals. You know, yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's really nice, interesting. I don't know. As we wrap this up on a final note for me, I would like to ask you one last question. What advice would you give to people coming to the UK from, different parts of the world, especially for us, we're from Africa, right? And they want to continue their passion in agriculture in the UK. What will your advice be to them?
It would be have an open mind, uh, understand the agriculture industry here, how it operates, try and understand the policies as well, uh, regulations as well, because they are very different.
Yeah,
Um, and connect yourself with the right space. What I can say is connect yourself with the right noisemakers, because noisemakers are many, but find find the right space, look for the right school. um I know volunteering is hard, but volunteer. That's one of the most inexpensive ways to learn a skill. And there are many courses within agriculture that you can learn. And also, just because you're in a different space, don't think the learning cannot be carried across. Because sometimes we feel like probably agriculture in Africa is not up to scratch. Well, I can say we do good stuff, but we are not very good at
yeah,
talking about the stuff we do. So,
yeah,
and also know that even if you're not within the UK and you've taken that knowledge, you can take it back home and apply something and make something beautiful out of it. That's all I can say. And We are there.
Mm.
If people want to reach out, reach out. You know, we can try and point you in the right direction if we can. Yeah, but put yourself in that space of wanting to know.
Wow. Thank you very much, Agnes. It's been
Mm,
really, really great speaking with you. And
Thank
I would
you.
like to say again, thank you very much, for agreeing to do this with us.
Thank you.
Dr.
Thank
Kila,
you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah,
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 and welcome everybody into agriculture. It's a wonderful space. Thank you.
yeah. It's also a wow from me because mostly women in agriculture are also very rare. And for you, your passion, the way you speak about agriculture shows that you are a champion. And I'm sure a lot of those who listen to us today will be motivated.
Mm,
I think for us at SH Agroconnect Consulting, we would talk more, we'll reach out more to you so that we can together use your allotment even as a training ground. A lot of people come into culture, even for me personally. So it's a thank you, very interesting session, and we look forward to of you. So from me,
thank you.
bye from here. I
Yeah,
and to Oladapo, of course, to close this session. So let's
thank you.
continue to work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
thank you, thank you very much, and we hope to, see our listeners on the next episode. Thank you.